But one of my favorites with your grandpa, he and I were in the very back field along the railroad track one night, and I don't know how Larry or Ronnie was with the plowing, but whenever, I'd done a lot of it, but whenever you got to the end and you were doing your finish furrows, your ditches at the end, I wasn't always the best at it. But we're working back there one night, and it was late, and of course it was on a work day. Your grandpa had been working all day. Well, we're finishing plowing that back field out. We had this SC case tractor, and your grandpa was running it, and I was running a little Ford we had at the time. And it was right at dark. I mean, it was just, you could see the silhouette of the guy when he passed you, but it was dark enough you couldn't see the face. So I passed your grandpa, and it was almost close enough where our tractor tires touched each other. We were that close to each other. And I get to the end of the field there by the old railroad track, the railroad trestle, and I turn around to go make my final pass across the field. Well, he's gone. He's just totally gone. And I thought, well, it wasn't like him to run off and leave you back there by yourself. And I'm thinking ill thoughts about him. And I'm back there and I'm going making my last pass across this field and trying not to mess this ditch up. Well, I get about halfway across, and the ones who would remember would have been back there. On the one end of that field was about the deepest ditch on the farm. Well, your grandpa, when he passed me, he had fell asleep on the tractor. And the tractor tires was keeping him in that furrow, so he just, it steered itself. He went and just drove right off the end of the field and drove nose first down into the ditch. So, and I get up there, and here he comes walking up out of there, and he did that from then on. He said, "That's it." He said, "From now on," he said, "before it gets dark," he said, "we're quitting and going to the house." But I kept thinking, well, he's run off and left me. Well, he hadn't. He fell asleep and drove in the ditch.
And then we talk about Mom. I can remember one of my favorite memories is that I can remember when we were real little, and we would get, she'd have her hands full with all of us. And I remember one summer day, her loading up one of Dad's pickup trucks with all of us kids in the back of it. Because Mom never really drove, but she knew how to drive, But she took some of the old trails, and we went all the way back into the farm, and she had packed us a picnic lunch and took Kool-Aid or lemonade or something. And we had a picnic way back on the farm in this one really cool place. I can still remember exactly where it was at. And it was just a big thing because Mom drove us in the truck, and we got to play in the truck and go back in the fields, and it was a great time, because Mom didn't do that often, it was like so she drove that truck with us. She was always fun, trying to find things for us to do, and whether we were playing with her or playing outside, but she encouraged us to, I don't know, be ourselves, play, like you said, play games or whatever. She was definitely a fun mom, and certainly, somebody that you could talk to too when you needed to.
Yeah.
So I was blessed. I was blessed all the way around. It was different, but on Friday nights, it was like a lot of times Mom went to bingo, and when she'd be at bingo, then that was Friday night, and me and Dad watched Dukes of Hazzard and making popcorn like before they had microwave, and he always loved that stuff, And that'd be the time when we talked more than ever, because when he was just in the kitchen with everybody around, you didn't get that one-on-one with him as much, So I remember a lot of times having that one-on-one with him, and that was kind of just special. It was just yours.
We knew Dad was dying of cancer, and I was always naive enough to think that, well, you've got time because that they're not. It's not like you're dying of a heart attack and just drop over, But just that whole time, really, and up through the hospital stay, and when Dad passed, it was really stressful, So, but the day of the funeral, and I don't even know whose idea it was, but Dad had a few open bottles there or whatever that was partially empty, and we took him out to the barn just because you felt closest to Dad being out in the barn, and we emptied him, and we emptied him pretty quick, and David had the faculties the best about him, so we suckered him into running. I think we ran down to Amelia to the liquor store, and we bought a whole bunch more and came back and emptied all that too. And by the end of that day, we'd filled up a wheelbarrow full of empty liquor bottles and beer bottles. And really, we just sat out there and told dad stories. You know, it was a good send off. For me, it was a stress reliever too.
Ron and Sophie lived away, and Victor was little, and Mom would always try to. When he came home to visit. I remember the one time in particular he came home and he loved riding on Grandpa's tractor, and that was a big deal to him. But when he was little, I can't remember, he probably wasn't ever like 4 or 5 years old, and I can remember I took Mom, Dad had decided he wanted to get him a tractor from the tractor store up in Bethel. I think it was Wolf's or whatever it was, and or Harlow's maybe, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was the one that was next to the Green Valley store, and I took her up there because she wanted to send him one for his birthday. Dad wanted to buy this little tractor. It looked just like the big ones. So we went in, and I parked at the Green Valley, and Josh and I was sitting in the car waiting on her, and she walked over there, and she went in, and she told them what she wanted. Well, they took her to the window to show her the ones they had, and the window was right where we were sitting. We were seeing her. And Josh was watching, and Mom walked to that window, and the man handed her this tractor, and Josh goes, "Grandma's buying me a tractor." And I said, and I told her when she came out, I said, "Josh, that's for Victor." When she came out, I told her, and she goes, "Oh, I can't do that." So she turned around and went back in the store and bought Josh a tractor too, because she didn't want him to be disappointed since she didn't get that one for him. So she bought him one too. But that's the way she was.
You take things like snacks and dessert. I can remember Mom, when she would, as time went by, go into the grocery store once a week. She'd go to the Kroger store up in Bethel, and I think back then, and this is back in the early 60s, I want to say, where she would come back from the grocery store and the back end of the car would just be piled full of groceries, and she had spent $40, $45 on the groceries. Probably cost you $500 or $600 now. But I can remember Dad complaining about how much Mom had to spend to feed all of us kids, because it was crazy how much money they had to spend. But Mom always it was kind of a game, I think. It went on for years, I think for as many years as I think we were all around there. And when she would go to the store, she would buy special treats and cookies and desserts and stuff like that that she never really put out on the table. She always would hide them in different places. At times she would hide them in the dryer, sometimes she would hide them in a cabinet or a closet or somewhere else where she didn't think any of us could find it. And eventually, you know how that is, you always do find it. So I think it was part of her game, though. I don't think she hid them as well as she could have or maybe should have, where we all found them. Memories of Mom. I mean, I can take things like she would get so frustrated and so upset, especially at Ron, and she would start raising Cain with him and just being very seriously upset at him about something he had said or done to her. And he would grab her arm and start kissing up her arm all the way up and start saying, "Tish, you drive me crazy when you speak that language," or so, I can't remember what it was. Mom would start out so horribly upset at him that she wanted to kill him. And by the time he got halfway up her arm, she was laughing uncontrollably at him. Still wanted to kill him, but for a whole different reason. So she was a good-turned, neat woman.
I think everything there was a great childhood. Mom was fantastic. Dad was Dad. I remember Dad coming home in the summer after work, grabbing a bite to eat, and hitting the fields and working till after dark and just coming in worn out and doing it all over again. And Mom getting up every morning and fixing him breakfast and packing his lunch. And it was a hard life for them, but you don't really realize that till you get old enough to know what it's like. But Mom did. She tried to make it as much fun as possible for us and do good, you know. But I know it's been touched on, but I remember days she'd need to mop. And it's like, everybody out. Get out. And she'd fix us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or whatever and a jug of Kool-Aid and send us to the woods. You know, and we'd go back there. We made log cabins. We did stuff that most parents now would be scared to death to let their kids do. The doors were never locked. I don't care if you came in at 3 in the morning. They knew when you got home. You may not hear about it, but you know they knew. Headlights shined in their bedroom window, okay? So whoever was the last one to come in, usually is the one that had to get up on Sunday morning and walk down and get Dad's newspaper. Because he knew you hadn't been in bed very long.
Well, this time of year, because it's starting to turn to fall, I always think about her. I can just envision her in a soft flannel shirt, cooking up a big pot of soup of some kind, and the windows getting all steamy. And always when the weekends were coming and she thought that the kids would be coming around, she wanted to have a big pot of something on the stove. And she took pride in that. And she took pride in, like, if she knew Larry was coming, she'd make a pineapple upside down cake. Or when blackberries, or she could get her hands on blackberries, Andy got blackberry dumplings. It's like we all had our favorite things, and it's like even on birthdays, every year I'd ask for cheesy meatloaf. It was like a Velveeta recipe or something, but by God, I got it on my birthday every year, you know. And Dad really wasn't a big fan of meatloaf, but she'd make it for me no matter what. And she knew all of us kids and what our favorites were, and she took great pride in making sure that you got that, you know. So. And her big iron skillets and biscuits and gravy. Oh. See, everything's going to be food related when it comes to me. But I think about Mom every day in so many ways, and just her sweetness and her holding your hand. You'd sit at the kitchen table and she'd always reach over and squeeze your hand or give you a squeeze, and I miss those. I miss her touch, but I miss everything about her. I loved her ornery sense of humor. I loved how we could just look at each other and know what each other was thinking. And she encouraged my ridiculous behavior. That's why I'm as crazy as I am. And a lot of times trying to make each other laugh while Dad was sitting there. And we all did that at the dinner table. Becky and Loretta and Andy. We were just like, because Dad always wanted us so quiet at the dinner table, and it was a big fun time trying to make each other laugh, you know, just because Dad would be, what the hell are you laughing at? What's so funny?